Every beat, every rhythm that pulses through today's music, whether it's in the heart of a rock concert, a jazz club, or a hip-hop cypher, has a story. That story starts deep in the heart of Africa, where the drum wasn't just an instrument, but a way of life. African drumming has influenced music in ways that are often invisible, but always felt. From ancient rhythms to today's chart-topping hits, how did African drumming become the powerful force behind modern music? Let's find out. Music has always been more than entertainment. It's communication, storytelling, and a reflection of culture. And at the core of this universal language lies rhythm. Nowhere is this more evident than in African cultures, where drumming holds a special, almost sacred place. Drums have long been the beating heart of African communities, shaping the rhythms of life, guiding spiritual ceremonies, marking moments of joy and sorrow, and even relaying messages between villages. Drumming wasn't just about making music, it was about maintaining the social fabric. These drums and the rhythms they produced laid the foundation for the modern music genres we listen to today. From the rhythmic DNA of jazz and rock to the syncopated beats of hip-hop and reggae, African drumming is the invisible thread tying them all together. Today, we're going to explore how the sounds that began in the cradle of civilization in Africa spread across continents and time periods to become the foundation of the music we all love. To appreciate African drumming's global impact, we must first understand its role in African culture. Drumming is much more than music in Africa. It's a way to communicate with both people and the spiritual world. In many African societies, drums were regarded as sacred instruments, imbued with the power to bridge the earthly and the divine. One of the most iconic African drums is the djembe, a goblet-shaped drum originating from West Africa. The djembe can produce a wide range of tones, from sharp, cracking highs to deep, resonant lows, making it a versatile instrument for solo performances or group ensembles. Another remarkable instrument is the talking drum from West Africa, known for its ability to mimic human speech. Skilled players change the tension on the drum's strings to vary the pitch, effectively making the drum speak. In some communities, the talking drum was used to send messages across distances, announce important events, or communicate between tribes. Imagine that, a world before cell phones, where the drum was the primary means of long-distance communication. What makes African drumming truly special is the concept of polyrhythms, multiple rhythms played simultaneously by different drummers. Each player may be performing a unique pattern, but when combined, the result is a complex and hypnotic sound that's much greater than the sum of its parts. This layering of rhythms is a signature element of African music. Drumming in African communities often involves the entire village. It's not a performance for an audience. It's a communal experience where everyone participates, from the drummers to the dancers and singers. This collective approach to rhythm created a foundation that later influenced not just musical styles, but the ways music is experienced socially. African drumming's journey to the global stage wasn't one of easy exchange. It was born out of struggle and survival. During the Transatlantic slave trade, millions of Africans were forcibly taken from their homelands and brought to the Americas and the Caribbean. While they lost much of their cultural autonomy, they carried with them the rhythms and traditions of their ancestors. And with those rhythms, they brought the soul of African music to new lands. These African rhythms collided with European instruments, Native American traditions, and new environments, leading to the birth of entirely new musical forms. Over time, African drumming would fuse with other sounds to create the building blocks of modern music. In the United States, African rhythms directly influenced the rise of jazz and blues, genres that became the foundation of American music. In New Orleans, one of the most culturally diverse cities in America, African rhythms met European musical forms and instruments, creating a unique sound. Drumming patterns found in West African music became the backbone of jazz, influencing how rhythm was approached in ways never heard before. Jazz drummers like Max Roach and Elvin Jones embraced polyrhythms and improvisation, traits directly drawn from African musical traditions. Without these African influences, jazz wouldn't have the swing, syncopation, or freedom that defines it today. In the Caribbean, African drumming also left its mark. The rhythms brought by enslaved Africans became the foundation of genres like reggae, calypso, and soca. The offbeat, syncopated rhythm of reggae, known as the skank, is a direct descendant of African drumming patterns, are deeply rooted in the heartbeat rhythms that originated in Africa. From the beaches of Jamaica to the streets of New York, reggae became a global phenomenon, but its foundation is unmistakably African. In Latin America, African rhythms fused with indigenous and European musical traditions to give rise to genres like salsa, samba, and rumba. In Cuba, the conga drum, another descendant of African percussion instruments, became essential in the creation of salsa. The complex rhythms of salsa dance music are undeniably linked to the polyrhythmic traditions of Africa. Meanwhile, in Brazil, African drumming evolved into the samba, a rhythm that energizes carnival celebrations and embodies the country's African heritage. These rhythms continue to drive some of the most popular music and dance styles across Latin America. It's not just jazz and Latin music. Rock and pop also owe a huge debt to African drumming. The powerful beats of rock drummers like John Bonham and Ginger Baker are often rooted in African rhythms. Baker, for example, traveled to Africa to study traditional drumming and brought those rhythms back to fuse with Western rock. Even in modern pop and hip-hop, African rhythms are a dominant force. The beat-driven structure of hip-hop, with its heavy focus on percussion and rhythm, mirrors the polyrhythmic drumming traditions of Africa. Today, hip-hop producers use drum machines and sampling to recreate those rhythms, making African drumming an integral part of the global music soundscape. The true key moment in understanding the influence of African drumming is realizing that it's not just about history, it's about continuity. African rhythms didn't just fade into the background, they've been continually reimagined and adapted into modern music. What started as ceremonial rhythms thousands of years ago has become a global language of music. The heartbeat of Africa is still beating, pulsing through the music we hear every day. The journey of African drumming is a story of resilience, creativity, and evolution. From the villages of West Africa to the world's biggest stages, the rhythms that started with hand-carved drums continue to move people, inspire genres, and shape the future of music. It's more than just a genre, it's the pulse of humanity's shared musical history. Thank you for taking this rhythmic journey with us. If you're passionate about music and its deep, interconnected history, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more explorations into the roots of global culture. Drop a comment below. What's your favorite music genre, and can you hear the African influence in its rhythms?